For my discharge to stop at the third week is actually considered pretty fast. I am constantly worried that the surgery will fail. Everything seems like it's going good, but at the same time, you don't exactly feel 100%. Part of the recovery process is actually making sure that you're in a good and happy mental state. Hi guys, my name is Chai. Welcome back to my channel. So this video here is going to be an update on my recovery from anal fistula surgery. So to recap, I did a ceton placement back in September, and in November I did the laser surgery, and in some places I think it's known as phylac to close up the fistula tract. And if you want to know more about my journey and experience with fistula surgery, you can check out my videos up over here, because previously I did 2 videos on my fistula surgery. And right now I'm just done with my 6-week mark post-surgery. I'm entering my 7th week, and honestly I feel super great. So in the last video I talked about having to do wound dressings for the skin around my external opening that was peeling off, and that was back in the 1.5 week post-surgery period. So after that, my skin actually healed up pretty nicely by the beginning of 3rd week. And I think it is by the end of the week that the skin completely healed up, meaning that the external opening there, like it completely scarred over nicely. And also I think it's by then that my discharge stopped completely. But I want anybody watching this video to bear in mind that my surgeon actually told me that it might take up to 6 to 8 weeks for the discharge to completely stop. So for my discharge to stop at the 3rd week is actually considered pretty fast. So I feel like if you're watching this video, don't panic if your discharge doesn't stop as fast as mine, because I feel like my timeline might be a little bit faster compared to some people, which I feel very grateful for. But I just wanted to let anybody know who's going through fistula surgery to know that I don't think it's very common for discharge to stop at the 3rd week. And now back to my whole recovery process. So I remember at the time I actually still felt pretty worried, because even though my external opening has completely closed up and from the outside it looks completely healed, I still actually feel a bit of pain here and there, especially when I sit down or when I press on the wound. And that to me didn't make sense, because I felt like if my skin has completely healed up, then why would I still be feeling pain? I also would occasionally feel like stabs of pain even when I'm not doing anything or just lying down. So that made me a bit worried as well. And I remember another thing that concerned me a little bit was sometime during the 4th week, there were 2 days where when I wake up, I found a few specks of blood and discharge. So yeah, that to me also was a little bit worrisome, because I am constantly worried that the surgery will fail. Like I was always very vigilant with any symptoms, any signs. So yeah, all these things really made me worry, because I felt like if my outside external opening was healed, why was I still feeling pain? So yeah, that was like my entire feelings for the 4th and 5th week before I saw my surgeon again. So I after that got to see my surgeon during about the 4th or 5th week, which was when I just started experiencing all these symptoms. And my surgeon said that all these things weren't uncommon. So for the discharge, from what I remember what my surgeon said, he actually said that it is normal to sometimes still see a little bit of discharge or blood here and there. He said that as long as you can see that the overall trend is improving, meaning that your discharge is actually decreasing from the previous week or the weeks before, then it's normally a good sign. Or at least it means that your recovery is actually going to the right direction. And I also asked him about the pain when sitting down or like pressing onto the wound. So what he did was he actually just examined me in his clinic. Like he pressed around my wound site to see if there's any infection or swelling. And after examining me, he was pretty confident that there was no new infection and that my wound was healing up as it's supposed to. And personally, I also agree with his assessment, because for me, sometimes I also press my wound and I look into the mirror. I do not recommend y'all to do this, and if y'all do want to do this, just do it super gently, because I just like gently pressed around my wound just to see, because I really wanted to be vigilant and know that if there is any like new swelling, I want to immediately see my doctor. So I did this like nearly every day, at least once a day, to just see if there's any new swelling, just really gently like pressing around the place. And I agree with my doctor, because when I pressed around, it didn't feel like there was any swelling. Like the skin around my wound and my wound itself was actually quite soft. There was only a little bit of hardness at the actual wound site, but I felt like that was just like scar tissue, because scars are bound to be a little bit hard, in my opinion, at least from my experience with having a perianal abscess last time, that the wound site will still be a little bit hard, but other than that, everything would feel very soft, which was what I'm experiencing at the moment. It's just that I felt pain when I sit down or when I purposely press onto it, which now when I talk about it, actually it feels silly, it sounds silly that I'm worried about this, because definitely I think when everything is still tender and still healing, I think it's really normal to feel a little bit of pain now that I think about it. So during my appointment at that time, my doctor just told me that we shall just observe a bit longer to see how things heal, because he was quite confident that there was no new infections, so he suspected that the pain was probably just from all the trauma that I've experienced through having surgery in the butt area, which I think really made sense to me, because if you think about it, I actually had a ceton as well as a Penrose drain in me during September for nearly about 2 weeks for the Penrose drain and like a whole 2 months for the ceton. So yeah, that was what my doctor said. At the time, I remember that I was still quite worried, but I just knew that there was nothing that we can do anyways other than to wait and see, which I think, again, this is what is really hard with this whole surgery process, because everything seems like it's going good, but at the same time, you don't exactly feel 100%, and you're just wondering when will you feel 100%, even when everything from the outside seems fine. So at this juncture, I just want to tell anybody that if you're experiencing pain, don't panic, but at the same time, don't be too lax about it. Definitely speak to your surgeon once you get to see them. Try to explain as best as possible what you actually feel so that they can evaluate what is the actual problem. Whether it's a new infection or whether your body's just recovering and your pain is actually just from like trauma of like multiple surgeries like me. And over here, I just want to share another thing that my doctor told me that really helped me put things into perspective, because I remember at the time, I was also very concerned about another thing, which was I felt like my pain fluctuates every day. I was never seriously in pain, but I would say that my pain score always hovered around 1 to 3. And so on some days, I will feel a bit more okay on the one day, and on some days, I will feel not so okay. That was when pain level was maybe a 2 or 3. And what my doctor said was this: when it comes to healing, sometimes looking at things from a week-to-week basis instead of a day-to-day basis would paint a more accurate picture on how you're actually healing. So if this week you're feeling overall better compared to the last week, it generally means that your healing is going in the right direction. And I think for me, this really helped ease my mind, because yes, even though I feel like my pain was fluctuating every day, but when I look back on it, I definitely can feel that my pain was improving and the weird sensations that I used to feel were slowly easing up. So yeah, that really eased my mind, and I'm really thankful for my doctor for like explaining things to me in this way. And fast forward after that, things actually started to really look up for me. I think it was last week, which is around the 6-week mark after my surgery. I really felt a very noticeable improvement when it comes to my pain as well as the weird sensations. And when I mean weird sensations, it just sometimes means that like maybe a wet feeling at your bum bum, or sometimes like even like a flowing sensation, like there's actually fluid like flowing. I realized from last week, I barely felt anything. So I don't really know how to describe this, but when I was at work or when I was going out with my friends, I realized that sitting down wasn't actually really painful anymore. Even when I was alone, I felt like all the weird sensations that I used to have like were barely there. And if I was even honest, sometimes I even forget that I actually have this entire like surgery, like even have a wound down at my bum bum when I actually focused on my thing. So yeah, it was a very, very wonderful feeling. And this feeling didn't come overnight, obviously. It was like a gradual sort of improvement. It was really slow, but I think really subtle. So I felt like it's something that I didn't notice until one day I actually like checked in on myself and just realized that, hey, I realized that the good days are actually a little bit more than the bad days now. So yeah. In short, my bum actually felt a bit more like how it used to be. Of course, it's still not 100%. Like I still don't feel up for doing like physical activities yet. I still feel that that place does tend to get sore a little bit if I moved in like very weird positions. But from a day to day, I felt more and more normal as the days go by. And for that, I'm really so happy. And in this next segment, I just want to share another thing that really helped me go through this recovery process more smoothly, which was deciding to see a psychiatrist for my mental struggles that I've went through because of this entire surgery process. And how I found this psychiatrist is actually just speaking to my doctor. I was just honest with him. Like, I made it very clear that it wasn't him. He was doing a very good job healing me physically, but I just told him that I'm struggling mentally with this a little bit, like with the uncertainty of everything, like whether I'll recover, whether things will recur, and all this kind of stuff. And he actually recommended me to somebody he felt like was really good with targeting this sort of issues. And over here, I just want to share the mindset tips that I've learned from my psychiatrist during my first session with her, so that I feel like if anybody who is going through similar feelings, and if you don't have access to like a mental health professional, you can like just, practice this mindset tips, and hopefully it will help you go through this process a little bit better. Because I genuinely think that, and also my psychiatrist also agrees with this, when you're healing from something like this, other than like physically healing well, your mental state would actually also help you heal better. So one of the big things that I really feared from this whole ordeal was that this disease or this condition would really change me and my life. I was worried that I can no longer go out spontaneously or say yes to things as I normally do, and that I have to live life more carefully in terms of what I do and what I eat. And all these fears really stemmed from how much my lifestyle has changed because of this entire condition and the surgeries that I had to go through. So the first thing that my psychiatrist told me was to not isolate myself and try to go back to my normal routine as much as possible. The main thing that was really hard for me from this surgery process was the recovery period, because I was taking a lot of sick leaves and also working from home most of the time during the past 3 months when I was recovering. And because of that, I don't really get the day-to-day interactions that I normally would if I was able to go to the office. And another thing was that I was actually on quite a strict diet. Strict in the sense that I limit certain things, like I can't eat seafood, eggs and nuts, and that I was actually quite adamant on eating home-cooked food because I didn't trust how people prepared the food outside in restaurants and everything. So if you ask me now, I don't regret going through that strict diet, because I believe that with my strict diet, I actually tried to eat a lot of vegetables, fruits, and also have a high protein diet, and I feel like that also contributed to my healing process. But the only problem with that is that I was very isolated from my friends as well. Because I think if you're a Malaysian, you know that here in Malaysia, whenever you go out with your friends, most of the time it will be to share a meal, and after that you all will have dessert. So I feel like this is the very common social construct or social norm, if you would call it, in Malaysia. And because of this thing where I was maintaining a strict diet, I also tend to not ask my friends out to meet. Yes, I think if anybody watching this, they would say that you can probably ask your friends out for a movie or to do something. But in Malaysia, there's just not really that many things to do, other than walking in the mall or something like that. And I felt like I think a part of me also didn't want to waste my friends' time. If I cannot even share a meal with them, why should I bother them to meet with them? And totally not their fault, because I didn't reach out to them. And sometimes I did get to meet friends, go to their house and everything. But for me, it was just not enough. I just felt really isolated because I already lost my day-to-day interactions by just going to the office. That was already something by default that I have to do that was already taken away from me. And on top of that, I also felt like I couldn't reach out to friends because I just didn't want to bother them, and I didn't want to impose on them to just go and watch a movie with me or something like that. I can't even share a simple meal with them. So yeah, that whole experience was just very isolating, and I felt myself becoming more and more sluggish, and also just generally really sad because I just didn't feel the human connection that I crave a lot as an extrovert. And what my psychiatrist told me was this, that it is actually important to go back to my normal routine as much as possible and to not let this condition become my worldview. And she also said that the more that I focus on this condition, the more sick or pain that I will actually feel, which I think is really true for me, because I noticed that on the days that I'm alone and left to ponder with my own thoughts and feel my own sensations completely, I do indeed feel more pain compared to if I was out with my friends and talking to them and going to see things, or even sometimes when I'm just walking out on my own and looking at stuff. The outside world and my friends tend to pull me out of that state. Even though I might be feeling pain, but it's because I'm talking to my friends or looking at certain things, that I don't tend to focus on the pain so much. So I felt like what my psychiatrist said really makes sense. And she also said that part of the recovery process is actually making sure that you're in a good and happy mental state. And that she also reassured me that if I was eating out, it's not going to sabotage my healing process, which was one of the things that I was really worried about. Is that what if I was actually able to heal, but if I eat outside food, like food that I'm not supposed to eat, then, then maybe it will actually impede my healing and actually be the cause of my surgery failing, which is completely not true, because she pointed out that for this condition, it's not caused by any particular food group. In fact, my doctor also said that there's nothing that I actually need to avoid. Like, I can actually eat like anything that I want. It's just that for me, I chose to go through that diet. And like I said, I don't regret going through it, but it's just that when looking back at it, perhaps like it was time for me at that time to also like start going out with friends, because I was indeed feeling better, but it's just that I was imposing this random timeline that I have to eat clean or eat at home for like 2 months after surgery, and then I can open myself back up. But my psychiatrist told me that you don't actually have to do that. Like, you don't actually have to like isolate yourself. You can actually go out and have fun with your friends, and maintaining that good mental state will be part of the healing process. So I remember at the time, that was 3 weeks after my laser surgery, and even though I was really scared, I decided to take her advice. I started going back to my office for work. I started driving out on my own to nearby places. It's my first time driving after my surgery, and yes, even though I kind of forgot how to switch lanes and I nearly went through a speed bump too fast, but overall I made it here in one piece, and the drive was actually pretty good. I'm really happy to be out. So yeah. And yes, I did not drive for the whole 3 months. So obviously I'm gonna feel quite bad about it, because I felt like my life really changed too much because of this whole condition and surgery process. And the best thing is that I also started eating out with family and friends, and yeah, I was really so happy to be able to just experience good food, as well as to just feel like life is normal again. And I really had no regrets following what my psychiatrist advised me to do. I remember at the time, even though I would have bad days in the sense that I would still feel a little bit of pain and discomfort, I realized that the bad days didn't last long, because I finally had something to look forward to. Okay, so right now I realize I'm running late because I have to see my psychiatrist for my second session. So yeah, I will continue filming this video when I can, so just don't be weirded out if you see a random venue change. So I'm at this ice cream place. I'm not even ordering the ice cream, but I'm just gonna sit down here and just film the remaining of my video. So I hope that there's not too much background noise and y'all will be able to hear me just fine. Another thing that made me really worried was being scared that So another thing that really made me worried was being scared that surgery would fail, and even if I heal properly from this surgery, what if my fistula recurs again? But what my psychiatrist told me that really helped me was learning how to accept myself as I am. And what this means is that I accept that this is a part of me, but it is also just a part of me. And what this means is that yes, this thing might be something that I have to deal with in the future, but it also shouldn't stop me from doing the things that I want to do in life. I like to think about this is like somebody having an allergy to peanuts. Is it inconvenient to have something so common potentially give you a deadly allergy anytime? Of course it is, but I feel like somebody like this would just accept this as something that is a part of them. They might be more careful when they go out, and maybe they will check whether the menu has any peanuts and maybe bring something like an EpiPen, but it doesn't mean that they stop living life just because they're scared that they might come into contact with a peanut, you know? And one thing that really helped me internalize this mindset is by listening to positive affirmations and reciting it. So normally what I'll do is I'll put on a podcast. I like this video by Lavender. I'll link it down in the description box below. So normally I'll just put it on in my earbuds and I'll listen to it as I'm in the train on the way to work. And I feel like this really helps me because as I recite this line where they have it inside is that I accept myself as I am or something like that, I really am reminded that this is just a part of me. It's okay because this is just one small part of me, and the rest of me is actually well and healthy and can do so many other things. So yeah, I really find that reciting positive affirmations really helps with my mood as well as my mindset when it comes to this. Another thing that I learned is that human bodies are meant to be imperfect. So another thing that I really struggled with was whenever I didn't have the best sleep, or when I missed the bowel movement for one day, and I'm always so scared that all these things will set back my healing. But one powerful thing that I learned from my psychologist is that our bodies are actually very magical in the sense that we rest and we eat and our body knows how to heal on its own. Like tissues know how to repair. But at the same time, our human bodies are just not meant to be perfect all the time. And what she means by this is that, yeah, your body can be functioning very well every day, but there will be some days where maybe you will just miss a bowel movement, but it's not something that you should worry about. So for all the overthinkers out there like me, know that you're not alone in all these kind of worries, but at the same time, just know that sometimes you just don't need to stress out about everything, and missing a bowel movement or not having the best sleep or not having like something perfect is not something to be worried about. And the last most important thing that you need to know is that you will be able to handle anything that comes your way. In my case, I was actually very scared to make plans when I was recovering from this, because I was so scared that what if something will suddenly happen to me and I will have to cancel the plans, or even worse, what if something happens to me when I'm on my trip or something like that and I do not know what to do and I cannot seek help. So one of these things was going to Singapore for a short trip before the year ends. And even though I didn't get to go because of other reasons, but I remember back then the reason why I was hesitating to make plans with my friend was because I'm somehow scared that my surgery will fail when I'm in Singapore and my abscess will come back when I'm on my trip, and that is honestly a nightmare for me. And when I told my psychiatrist this, what she said was this. The first thing she said was, okay, firstly, it is unlikely that your abscess will come back on the short few days that you're in Singapore. And she said that secondly, even if it really does happen, you will be able to handle it because you have handled this before and you will be able to handle this now. And what she said really made sense, because like back in January, I actually had this abscess for a whole 2 to 3 weeks before I even got my operation. And even for this fistula thing, I actually re-abscessed, but I was okay for 1 month before I had to do my surgery. So yeah, obviously this is not recommended if you actually have a problem, and shouldn't be an excuse for you to delay your treatment. But what I'm trying to say is that even if an abscess really does happen on a time where you can't seek treatment immediately, you will be able to handle it. And I think this is something very important for people who have a hard time dealing with uncertainty to know, is that even though there are a lot of unknowns that might happen, you just know that somehow things will turn out okay, because you will know what steps you have to take when the thing actually happens. So this is the end of my video. I hope it was helpful for anyone watching this. And honestly, I would say that whatever my psychiatrist said, I think about 70 to 80% of it I already know by talking to my friends and thinking about things on my own. But I think it definitely hits different listening to all this from somebody who is medically trained like a psychiatrist, because I feel like the first thing is she will already have a basic understanding of your condition. Like right off the bat, she already knows what a perianal abscess is, what a fistula is. So I don't really need to go through with her about the nitty-gritty details about this whole medical condition, and she already knows how recovery is like for people with this condition. And the most important thing is she can tell you which of your fears are valid and which of them are really just fears. So I'm really thankful for my friend who recommended me to see a psychiatrist to go through this. And it's all these mindsets that I learned from my session that slowly allowed me to go back to a life that I'm happy to live as well. So my appointment with my colorectal surgeon is 2 months after this. So I'll probably give an update then. And I think by then I would sort of be more like, you know, sure whether surgery is actually successful. And yeah, if something does happen before the 2 months, I'll probably update here as well, but I hope not. And yeah, that's the end of my video. I'm wishing everybody that is going through this, or even any condition of your own, whether it's mental or physical, a speedy recovery and the best of luck in your own recovery journey. And be confident that your body can heal and that you can get through this. And until then, I'll see you all next time. Bye!